Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be sharing one of my most important achievements, and I've used this opening many times, and today I'd like to share with you this opening because I kind of got used to not playing it. And when I was younger, I used to almost always play the English opening, and this line has given me quite some success, but because I don't really use it anymore, I'm willing to share this knowledge with you guys. So as I said, this is a line for the English opening. But if you're a Sicilian player, this will also be extremely useful for you too. So here we go. So this opening starts white c4, and here black plays e5, and now white makes the deviation immediately, starting off with a3. And the move a3 is an extremely common line, but this line that appears here is usually arisen when white plays a3 first. Now, most of you may know that playing a3 first allows d5 or an extremely common g6, but usually these moves haven't been really played too often, and c4, in my opinion, is a better continuation because you transpose into this Sicilian setup. And right here on the other side, as you can see, I'm going to be using this board as well to help you guys analyze from white's perspective and then from black's perspective with white having the a3 pawn. Here, black almost always plays knight f6 because it makes the most sense. And here, knight c3. You can also play d3 if you're a Najdorf or Dragon player, but I'll get back to that in a second because knight c3 is best equipped with this opening. And after knight c3, black has a few options. Black can play d5, which is extremely common. Black can also play knight c6, but not knight c6 is basically in this line, knight f3, knight c6, and white playing knight c3 in this position. And as you should know, black should play e6 to get a better position. And after white plays bishop b5, just come back to this position and see bishop b5 in this board. Remember this position. Coming back here, if black plays knight c6, white plays e3, there's no bishop b4 for black because of this amazing a3 pawn. So this gives white the easy advantage that black is messed up in his opening preparation because bishop b4 is usually the move that exploits. And if you play something like d5 to get back into the Taimanov, then in this position, you're just giving white an extra tempo and extremely sharp Sicilian line. Now, personally, I don't know the theory for the Taimanov, and I haven't played it before, but to you Taimanov players out there, if you realize that white is gaining a tempo with this a3 move, good job. So this line is extremely suited for you. And after knight c3, if d5, c takes, and if d5 instead, then knight takes d5. Here, you have a few options. Some people can play d6, and then we transpose back into a classical tape position. So after knight c6, d4, we transpose to a classical tape position, and here white can play knight c6. Or if you want to play e6 in this position, that's perfectly fine. Which transposes here to e3. And as you can see, this position is also quite good. But the thing is, here black has the option of just taking on c3, and this exploits the fact that the pawn at a3 weakens the light square significantly. This is why, in my opinion, e3 is not as good in this position, but e3 is completely fine here, because after trading, you can play queen c2, and you protect the square with your queen, and that will help out. Although here, knight takes c3 is still viable, but you can take with the queen in this type of position, because you can build up d4 and have no threats of bishop b4 because of this pawn on a3. So that's just one tip from me at least. So you know this opening too, but in my opinion, the opening that's best suited with this opening is the Sveshnikov for black. And for black, let's flip the board now. Sveshnikov is knight f6. Here white must play knight c3 to protect its pawn. And here you play e5. And the Sveshnikov was an opening that I almost always played when I was younger. It is one of my most favorite lines that I'll be covering an whole Sveshnikov encyclopedia that I have in my computer. But for now, the main thing you need to know is the only way for white to get an advantage in this position is knight db5. And then you realize that in this exact same type of position, if white decides to go for a Sveshnikov type line and plays e4, knight here is off limits. And now there are many difficulties that black faces. If knight takes c3, b takes c3, white threatens the same old bishop b5 as the Sveshnikov. And now after bishop c5, d4, and takes, you can't play d4 immediately, but you can play it later. Bishop e4 isn't a threat, so that pawn in a3 is a crucial pawn. And even though it weakens the b3 square, it doesn't play that big of a role. And this line is quite good for white. And other than that, if black plays knight f4, which is the second best line in here, where white plays knight f5, here you play d5, and after e takes, bishop takes, d takes, you trade queens, and after knight e3, bishop g6. This endgame is known to be good for black, and possibly this knight f4 is one of the biggest weaknesses in this line, but it isn't that big of a weakness. It's mainly because in this line, bishop takes f4, b takes e3, queen takes, knight takes, b takes, knight e6, bishop g3. The pawn on a3 weakens white's light squares, and that means that black could be slightly better than in this type of endgame where the pawn's still on a7. But when the pawn's on a3 or a6 for black's case, because white is up a tempo, this can't be too bad. And white has moves like knight d4, bishop c4, castles, bring the rooks to open files. White should be okay here. So here we go back, and then we reanalyze all these lines. And we've completely covered how the Sveshnikov works extremely well with this a3 move. So now we come back, and then to all you Najdorf and Dragon lovers, d3 would be what you guys would like to play here. And this is perfectly natural, and I've played this many times because I used to play the Dragon as well. And after d5, c takes, knight f3, knight c6. This is a Najdorf, except white is completely up a tempo. And here you have a big decision. And here is going to be my first break moment, is that if you are a Dragon player, this a3 line might seem good to make it a Dragendorf when you have a tempo up, but it is actually not best. And I'll explain to you guys why later. But for now, if you're a Najdorf player, obviously this would be a perfect line. After something like e4, which is standard, I'm going to play knight b6. And here, bishop g5, or bishop g4 in this case, is the only line where you don't want to play this e4 move. However, because you have this extra tempo, and if you are extremely familiar with these types of positions, with this type of pawn structure, the Najdorf, you can just decide to play h3. Now, I'm not saying that this is the best move, but it's still a pretty good move. If you're more ambitious, you can play bishop e3. But this does allow black bishop g4 moves or f5. But white should be still okay here. For example, if black plays f5, you should play bishop e2 here. And this allows black to play f4, and then you bring your bishop back around here. And that's white's strategy in this line. It's equivalent to here, and after... so d6, d4, c takes, knight f6, knight c3, a6. And here, the equivalent of this line is, for example, white plays something like bishop e2, and then you decide to play e5, and after knight b3, you play bishop e6, which allows f4 to be played. Now, if you notice this position and then you notice back here, it's the exact same position reversed, except black hasn't played this bishop e7 move, which is supposedly helpful. So, as you can see here, this is quite good, and you can play something like e takes here, and after bishop takes, knight c3. This is also an equally good line, exploiting the e4 square. So, finally, I'll get to the big disclaimer. So, finally, you have seen what a3 in this c4, e5, a3 line is good against, but there is something that it's extremely not good against, and that is the Dragon main line. So, firstly, when we go back to the Dragon after white plays g3, this line is the only line where a3 might become a drawback because of the following moves. Bishop e6, bishop g7, Oh yeah, and a bishop after bishop e6, here knight g5 is a possibility, but this knight g5 line, because now there's no bishop b5 check, bishop b4 check, right? But it's like the Najdorf line. It's like the equivalent Najdorf line for playing here 6 move knight g4. It's the equivalent idea. Bishop g5 is played, and this whole line comes into being. And here bishop g7, and this line is okay for white and okay for black. However, in this case, in the dragon, bishop g4 actually becomes more powerful, because in this case, now the knight, although it looks a bit stacked, the bishop attacks the weak e2 pawn, and this pawn usually becomes a weakness whenever black tries to strengthen his position. And here f6 is an easy alternative for white, and the bishop can just stay on g4 because the bishop wants to come to h3 anyway. Because of this, back here, this line is good, but in this case, it's not as good, as you can see. And finally, instead of bishop e6, knight g5 business, you can just play normal bishop g2, and after f6, castles, queen e7, knight c3, and here black plays long castle. If black plays bishop c5 in this position, then you are actually gaining tons of time. You can play knight e4 too, after bishop b6. I'd say you have this Dragendorf set up already, so you can just blow up with b4. And here it's actually best for black just to short castle and not care about long castling, because if black is long castling, white is gaining tons of tempi. And as you can see, the computer bar already likes white, which in black's case would be bad. And in this case, you can just get rid of that bishop immediately, and you can start attacking down this file, and white should be better here. So, as you can see, against the Yugoslav attack, this is no problem. But it's against the main line that there's a big catch. d4, knight c3, pawn c3, e d4. Well, actually, no. You shouldn't play knight c3, so you just play e d4, but it more or less transposes. And here, normally, bishop d5 is a good position, but now both of the main lines in this position are horrible for white. So firstly, the first main line is bishop takes d5, or in this line, which I'll just set up dragon. I hope you're following here, because this is extremely tough theory. So here, the dragon, and okay, I'm just gonna move all the moves for now. So yeah, here we go in the main line. And d5, e takes, knight takes, knight takes, knight takes, bishop d4. Bishop takes d4 is one of the main lines in this position. However, it's a safe way to play. But the key moment is that after queen takes d4, black has this important move, queen b6, which allows him to have equality, because after takes, a takes, knight takes, pawn takes, rook takes, the a2 pawn's also hanging. And this is what gives black the drawing lines. However, in this opening, after queen takes d5, queen here is out of bounds, because after knight takes d4, there is no pawn in a2 protecting the queen on b3. That is the trouble here, and now white is completely losing. And if white doesn't play this queen b3 line, black is just better in this line. For example, after queen c2, h5 is usually played, and this line is just better for black. So this is not the good line. And then if we come back, if bishop takes d5 is not played, e4 is played instead, then bishop c4, and here after bishop e3, which is the correspondent of bishop e6, knight e5 can be played. After rook e1, this is the exact same line as the dragon, except white has played this awkward a3 move that doesn't do anything and just weakens more light squares. And this is the main reason why the dragon, if you're a dragon player and you like playing the dragon more than any other type of Sicilian, this line might not be the best for you, because playing an a3 early weakens the b3 square from the very start of the game. So if you don't like these types of continuations, then I don't recommend it. But overall, as you can see, this line is quite sharp, and you can transpose into many types of Sicilians you like the Taimanov Sicilian, or how you can exploit your opponent in the Sveshnikov. And finally, there are many lines in Dragon too. Like, for example, in this line, you can also play the Queen C2 and the Rook sack line. And this line is also quite good for white, although the computer doesn't realize it. Most of you should know. And also, finally, about the Najdorf. The Najdorf is also extremely good here. And these lines are all extremely good for white. So, as you can see, this clever Sicilian, where white gets this extra a3 movement, it's like playing Sicilian with an extra tempi, but if you're a Dragon player, this knight might not be the best if your opponent knows how to play this theory. So I hope that you learned something, and I hope that you might be able to use this video in your preparation, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!